It's September, meaning it's fall. Yes, I know it's technically still summer until the 22nd, and it may even be still hot outside where you live, but by the power vested in me, we're moving on to comfort foods. And I know that if you have fitness goals to reach, it can sometimes be hard to fit these into your macros. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Amanda, aka Fit Food AE, and today we're making 21 high protein, low calorie comfort food recipes to help you reach your fitness goals without having to sacrifice delicious meals. So let's get started, shall we? Starting off strong with a cheesy spaghetti meatballs recipe, but make it high protein. By the way, all these recipes are vegetarian because I'm vegetarian, but you could easily substitute the meat substitutes with actual meat. Anyway, so normally when you think of spaghetti, you don't think like high protein, right? But it's really all in the sauce. So the sauce is going to be made up of a few ingredients: cottage cheese, nutritional yeast, some shredded cheese, some tomato sauce, spices, and then you're gonna blend that all up. Make sure to get a good blender, and you might need to mess around with it a little bit. It should look like this consistency. And of course, you're gonna put a lot of veggies. I chose to put broccoli, and then I seasoned it and did it in the air fryer, and I also did onions. And then I used Gardein meatballs. Again, you could just use regular ones if you want, but you can make these all in the air fryer, which is great. For the pasta, again, you're not going to be using regular spaghetti. You're going to be using this protein spaghetti. Now, you don't need to use this one, but the Catelli brand is really, really good. I kept asking them to send me PR, but they said that their list is closed or something, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, anyway, if you use just regular spaghetti and you don't use this high protein sauce, obviously it's not going to be that high in protein, but mix that all together as well as you can. And then you're going to put the veggies in after and mix it all up. And this was so, so good. The portion size is honestly gigantic. And you're gonna add the meatballs after. Obviously for the video, I just put the whole meatballs on, but in reality, you're gonna probably chop them into pieces or use your fingers to put them in small pieces and put them throughout the pasta. If you go to reheat this and it's a bit stuck together, you could just add a little bit of moisture, like water or oil, to help separate the noodles. But yeah, this is so, so good. Look at that twirl. Next up, we've got our cheesy chicken penne. So again, you could just use regular chicken, but I use vegan chicken for this. I showed myself chopping up the veggies. Part of me is like, why did I do that? You guys know how to chop veggies. But yeah, I usually just cut up mushrooms with my fingers, but I use cherry tomatoes, mushrooms, and onions. You can kind of use whatever you want. For the sauce, I use the same combination. You don't have to add the tomato sauce, but it just gives it a bit more of a rosé color. And then if you need to add a little bit more liquid, you can, but don't make it too liquidy. Yeah, so I use this tofurkey plant-based chicken. I just put it in the air fryer. You put the onions and mushrooms on the stovetop, and then for the pasta, again, we're using Catelli pasta, but this is the protein penne. Honestly, their stuff is godsend. They have the mac and cheese, the penne, the spaghetti. I think that's all they have. But yeah, it also cooks really fast. It cooks in 8 minutes. So just be mindful of that when you're cooking the veggies and all that. But yeah, you should really stock up on this pasta. It's amazing. It's so easy to add extra protein. So you're gonna put the cheese sauce in there. I love mixing it together. This is my favorite part. And then after that, you're gonna mix in the veggies and the vegan chicken. If you're really mindful about macros and keeping everything the exact same, you could always measure them out separately. But I feel especially if you're eating all 4 servings or you make this all the time, it really doesn't matter. For the video, I actually just put them on top instead of mixing them in, but that was mostly just for the picture in the video to look better. But yeah, this looks so, so good, and it's cheesy and just so delicious and easily high in protein. So guys, this next recipe, the protein mac and cheese, this is literally one of my favorite recipes I've ever made. I make this once a week and meal prep it. It's so, so good. It makes 4 servings. So the sauce is a little bit different. You're gonna use Fairlife skim milk instead of the tomato sauce. And yeah, this mac and cheese is so customizable. You'll see the ingredients that I add to it, but you could just make it on its own and then add whatever you want. The sauce is so creamy and smooth. And yeah, for the veggies, you can kind of customize it. But I like to use onions, mushrooms, and tomatoes. So we're using Catelli protein macaroni. For this one, again, it's just really easy to get a lot of protein in by using a protein pasta. You could also use chickpea pasta. I feel it doesn't taste as good. Then I use this Beyond Meat steak tips. Now the bag is $13 because I live in Vancouver. It's expensive. So you can kind of use any other fake meat or regular meat. But yeah, I basically just cook everything in a pan. I use my Hexclad pan because I feel it's just cooks everything really well. But the pasta cooks really quickly, so just keep that in mind when cooking everything in the pan. But yeah, basically, once the pasta is cooked, you're gonna drain it, and then you're gonna put the sauce, and then you're gonna mix everything else in. Again, if you are really mindful about keeping the macros of each serving the exact same, you could weigh out the pasta and then weigh out the Beyond Steak and the veggies, but I just don't do it. Look at how good this looks. Oh my God. It's just like so decadent and makes you feel like you're eating a comfort food, but like still fits into your macros. And each portion size is really big because obviously like pasta's dense in calories, but if you bulk it up with like veggies and like lean meat or fake meat, then you're gonna get more bang for your buck for sure. This is a great recipe to meal prep. Again, it reheats super well. And I find that when I eat this for dinner, I don't have cravings after to have like something sweet or to keep eating because it's just such a big portion and it feels like you're eating it forever. But yeah, you can easily customize this anyway. If you want, if you're feeling lazy, you could literally just make it on its own and not even put any veggies or like mix-ins in. Next up, we've got some pizza. So this is a white mushroom pizza, as I call it. The dough is made up of mostly like flour and Greek yogurt. That's a great way to make some high protein, low calorie dough. It can kind of be annoying to handle. So just make sure to flour the surface and have kind of like a rolling mat like I did for this and a rolling pin. It's annoying to do without a rolling pin, but if you don't have one, you could just use like a wine bottle or a glass or something. But the trick here is to roll it out as thinly and as large as possible so you get like a big thin crust pizza, and that's where the surface comes in because it's really easy to take off after. But yeah, basically just do that, and then you're going to make a little crust like this because again, we want to make it so the pizza is really big and you feel like you're getting a lot out of it. You're using the Alfredo sauce. So Alfredo sauce is actually not as high in like calories or whatever as people would think, especially the Classico one. That one's a really good one to use. So you're gonna spread that out and then you're gonna use some light shredded mozzarella. Again, the trick here is to not like overdo it and just use the measurements that I mentioned. Then you're obviously gonna bulk it up with mushrooms. Now I love oyster mushroom. For some reason, these like are just so much better. I don't know, they just taste a lot better. But use these regular ones if you want. But yeah, you're gonna bake it and then broil it if your oven has that function because it makes it more like stringy and delicious. Just look at that little cheese pull. And yeah, if you cut it into 8 slices, it makes you feel like you're eating a lot more. So I like to do that. This is a great little lunch. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time to prepare, but you could even prep the crust ahead of time. So if you're an OG, you might recognize this recipe. This is my stuffed crust pizza recipe. I made this a while ago and it's really nostalgic for me because I used to get like stuffed crust pizza when I was like in elementary school, but it's obviously so unhealthy. Like it's one of the unhealthiest things ever. And I feel like a lot of places don't even do it anymore. But this entire pizza has under 600 calories for the whole thing. And it can really feel like you're eating something really decadent. So I think when I first made this recipe, I didn't have a rolling pin. So you'll see I'm just kind of like rolling it out with my hands. And then I use a cup. So again, you can definitely do that, but it's obviously easier with a rolling pin. But yeah, you're going to try and roll it out as thinly as possible. And then for the stuffed crust, we're actually using cheese strings. So you're going to cut these into 4 little pieces each and then just put them around like this. And then you're going to seal the crust. And you might want to use like a fork to seal the crust as well, or you can use your fingers, just making sure that the cheese doesn't ooze out. But if it does, it's totally fine. Then you're using marinara sauce, no Alfredo sauce for this one. And marinara sauce is so low in calories. And then you're going to put cheese in the middle as well. So you got the cheese in the crust and the cheese in the middle. And this recipe is just so cheesy and delicious. And then I like to do a little everything bagel crust. So maybe put a bit of cooking spray or like even an egg wash, whatever, and then put the crust. This isn't mandatory, but in my world it is. So yeah, make sure to be careful when placing it on the tray. And then you're going to bake it. It's going to look like this. And wow, this looks so good. You'll see a little bit of the cheese is oozing out of the crust, but that's totally fine. You could even double this recipe and make it like a bigger one if you have like higher macros, or if you want to share it with people. It'd be good to bring to a party as well and just like impress your friends. Don't even tell them it's Greek yogurt crust, high protein, low calorie, and just look at that cheese pull. It's so delicious. Next up, we've got some garlic fingers. So this crust recipe is kind of similar, right? We're putting more garlic powder in here, but basically similar to the other one. So you're going to mix it. First, you're going to mix it with a spoon, and then you're going to use your hands because otherwise like it just gets tough to handle. And again, yeah, this thing, like the rolling pin, like thing combo is from Temu. I'm pretty sure I got it ages ago, but it is literally a lifesaver. So I'm going to make it into like a rectangle shape. You can do this using the back of a wet spoon because that just seems like garlic finger-esque to me. I think I got this idea from like, you know, places like Boston Pizza or whatever, they do garlic fingers. Like I think that's kind of where I got the idea. But garlic paste is what you're gonna need. That's gonna be our like sauce, and you're just gonna spread it out very thinly. And then from there, you're gonna put the mozzarella. So it's gonna be like garlicky, cheesy, and so good. And then for the veggies, you're gonna put little like diced green onions because we need some veggies in there, obviously. But yeah, this definitely reminds me of like getting an appetizer, sitting at like a bar or a pub kind of thing, but it's so good. And I like to put some spices on it, like oregano, that sort of thing. But it's nice because normally when you go to get this at a restaurant or like a pub, it's like you can't eat the whole, well, you can eat the whole thing to yourself. It's not going to fit into your macros. But for this, whole 8 slices, yeah, go ahead and eat it all. Now we're really getting into comfort food with this tomato soup recipe. So this one is interesting. I think one thing I could have done differently is get like an immersion blender and feel like that would be easier. But I just didn't have one and didn't want to buy it for this recipe. But it takes kind of a while. You're putting everything into the pot and you kind of have to let it simmer for a while. I never bought like whole tomatoes before this, but the cornstarch is important because you don't want it to be too watery, right? So I'm gonna put all those ingredients in, kind of like mix it every so often, let it simmer. And then the trick here, making it high protein, is mixing cottage cheese in. So again, this is easier with an immersion blender. I love this recipe because it's such a big portion, right? Like we have the little crostinis on the side, which we can eat with this entire tomato soup. And I love putting in like a shallow bowl so you just have room to like use the crusty bread to soak it up. Yeah, just add a little bit of Parmesan cheese there, and yeah, you can really pair it with anything. I feel like eating it on its own is kind of boring, but I was originally gonna pair it with grilled cheese, but I feel like the crusty bread pieces, it's just easier. So next up, we've got some chili. So of course, this is vegetarian, but you could use regular meat if you want. I don't want to hear anything in the comments. So I used an entire package of the Beyond Meat ground. I absolutely love this. It's like my lifeline. But yeah, this has a lot of ingredients, a lot of good veggies, super filling, super hearty. Definitely reminds me of like a good comfort food. So you're gonna mix everything in a pot. Again, veggies, you can kind of do whatever you want. If you don't like peppers, cool. I use kidney beans and black beans. If you want to just use like one of the beans, that's cool too. But I feel like it's very chili-esque to have both kinds. You could also add more spices. I actually decided to add a little bit of sweetener plus the salt. But yeah, basically you're gonna mix everything together and let it simmer, similar to the tomato soup. This is important, just let everything blend, including the tomato paste and all that, but you're gonna stir it throughout. It's already coming together. So I just put some shredded cheese on top, and then it's gonna melt because the chili is still gonna be hot. This is optional, but I feel like it makes it just like come together. And again, tortilla strips. When I think of chili, that's what I think of, like cheesy tortilla strips. So good. But yeah, this is a great recipe to take to like school or work as well, except everyone's gonna be jealous of you. Next up, we've got some high protein dips. So first one is taco dip. I absolutely love this recipe. So that cheese sauce, I literally got it from the Kraft mac and cheese box. You could also use, I work with this brand called Meal Boosters sometimes, and they make like a high protein like cheese powder. But yeah, if you don't have that, just use the Kraft one. But yeah, I put some like vegan ground beef. This time I use Gardein. You could also use Beyond Meat or just regular. But yeah, you're basically gonna cook that, and then you're gonna mix it with the veggies in this container. By the way, I got these from Amazon. And then you're gonna pour that cheese sauce in, make sure to blend it thoroughly, and then mix it together. And what's good about this container is that you could use this to bake the taco dip and then also store it in there. So you're gonna bake it with the cheese on top. You can actually broil it if you want, but this is what it's gonna look like. Someone commented and they're like, oh, that salad looks kind of sad. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I guess the tricky part here is like if you eat it with a million different chips, it's not gonna be macro friendly, but just limit that, or you could eat it with veggies, or you could just eat it by the spoonful because it's honestly so delicious and filling. You could even just eat half of it and then save the other half for later. It's so good. Next up, we've got queso dip. So this, yeah, is literally just cheese dip, but it's going to be healthier because I feel like regular queso dip is just like so high in calories and not even that high in protein. So obviously cottage cheese is the main star of the show here, but you're going to blend that together and then put it in, again, these same containers that are literally lifesavers. And you're going to actually mix it with the shredded cheese rather than blending it initially in, because that's going to make it more like stringy and delicious. So you're going to microwave it in intervals. Don't microwave it for too long. Like literally follow what I said on the screen. Otherwise, it's going to curdle and it's going to be gross. But yeah, you can pair these with chips or with veggies, and it's so good and delicious and decadent. And yeah, like, why not bring this to school or work? And then people are like, are you literally just straight up eating cheese? Be like, yeah. And like, what are you going to do about it? Oh my God, yes, we've moved on to the buffalo chicken dip. This literally has 67 grams of protein. It's absolutely insane. So I don't even really like spicy food that much, but I feel like it's not too spicy with the buffalo sauce and the jalapenos. You could add more or less depending on your preferences. So I just use vegan chicken. You're going to mix it with the sauce and you're going to mix that cheese in and then put more on top. Again, my oven, for some reason, the broil feature didn't really work that well. Like I broiled it and it didn't really work, but it's fine. It still ended up being nice and stringy. Top it with chives and you're good to go. This is great for like a game day, like Super Bowl kind of thing for people to share, or great for yourself. And honestly, it's so filling and big. I feel like you might not even need the full portion depending on your appetite, but I absolutely love this recipe. It's so decadent and good. And lastly, for the dip recipes, or at least for now, we got onion dip. So this, like, again, this is normally maybe not as high in calories, but it's just not high in protein, right? But for this one, we're gonna make it higher in protein. The main thing is the Greek yogurt. Honestly, this recipe is super easy. The only annoying part about it is like having to caramelize the onions because it takes a long time. You just kind of have to let it simmer at like a low heat. And then you're just waiting and just kind of like stirring it, preventing it from sticking. But I love caramelized onions. They're so good. And you're gonna mix the Greek yogurt with this like French onion soup mix, which you get at most grocery stores. It's just a Lipton one. Honestly, you could make this dip just with the onion soup mix and not the caramelized onions, but I feel like that's not as fun. So you're gonna mix that together. And for me personally, I mix some of the onions in and I put some on top. And then that way it just gives it more volume and it's chunkier, and then it just adds more texture as well. Again, you could like literally eat this with a spoon, or you could pair it with veggies, pair it with chips. You could also share it. You can make like a bigger portion of it if you want to share it with people. But yeah, it's really, really delicious and super easy to make if you just let those onions caramelize and do something else while you're doing that. So good. Okay, these tofu nuggets, these are a hit. I made them for like a St. Patty's Day party earlier this year and everyone absolutely loved them. They're so, so good. And you can even like freeze them and reheat them. They're so easy. So you're gonna use extra firm tofu and then literally just use your fingers to make it into random pieces like these. You could even freeze the tofu before if you remember to do that, but I just like drained it. I used like a paper towel to press it after doing that. I don't even have a tofu drainer, but yeah, I use the Fairlife skim milk and then some lemon juice. It makes it higher in protein, obviously. And then you're gonna mix flour with some spices. I just put like garlic powder, paprika, salt, and then obviously nutritional yeast to make it cheesier, high in protein, but you could choose whatever other spices you want. And then in another bowl, you're gonna have the breadcrumbs. So I use panko ones. So you're gonna basically have the bowl with the milk mixture, then the flour mixture, and then the panko breadcrumbs. And you're gonna dip it as you can see. So like milk, flour, milk, breadcrumbs. And then I use my fingers. Honestly, guys, this does kind of take a while. Like you could do 2 at a time, but I'm not gonna lie, it is a bit annoying. You might have to like wash your hands in between as well because you'll get like stuff stuck on it. But yeah, honestly, just make a bunch at a time. And then this recipe, I mean, depending on your macros, this could maybe make like a few servings, or this could also be a good thing to share with people, bring to a party, etc. But yeah, it's really, really good. They're easy to eat, and then you can also pair them with different dips and stuff. But yeah, once everything is coated, again, you could either freeze it and make it later, or you just put it right in the air fryer. I put it in for 15 minutes and then just check halfway, make sure to shake it so it doesn't stick and just gets even. But you could put it in for longer depending on your air fryer. And then again, I like to pair it with ketchup and mustard. You can also pair it with mayo if you're a weirdo. But yeah, this is really good. It makes you feel like you're eating like the KFC popcorn chicken, but it's a vegetarian version. It could even be vegan if you use like not the Fairlife milk and you use some sort of vegan milk. But yeah. So this is a vegetarian chicken burger. Again, you could use regular chicken, but you use a ciabatta bun. You can make this entire recipe in the air fryer. Like, yeah, these handful of recipes are all kind of air fry recipes. So you air fry the bread and then you air fry the chicken patty. Again, if you're using regular chicken, you can still do this, but I just put the toppings on the chicken burger. So I put the sauce and then the cheese, and like the cheese should stick using the sauce, and then you're just gonna kind of broil it more using the air fryer. And these are so good. They're easy to make. If you want, like, you just make that and put some like frozen fries in the air fryer, in the oven. It's such an easy like lunch or dinner, and it's so good and very, very filling. So next we're making burritos. So I originally called these like Mexican burritos, and someone was like, burritos are already Mexican. You don't have to say that. It's like an oxymoron. So I was like, okay, they're just burritos. So if you have a rice cooker, this makes it a lot easier. I feel like getting a rice cooker is literally a lifesaver, but I use Beyond Meat for this. You're going to chop it up and put it with the veggies, and then just, yeah, make sure it's brown. The thing with the Beyond Meat is like, because it's not real meat, sometimes I cheat. I'm like, oh, like it must be done. And I realize I've undercooked it. But yeah, I tend to put it on a bit like medium high heat at first and then lower it. You're gonna add all your spices. I kind of use the same ones as you guys can all see. But then make sure to warm up the tortilla for 30 seconds before putting the fillings in. Otherwise, it's gonna break. So that is a key step. Put all the fillings in, put the sauce last, and then roll it up like I'm doing here. This is the only way to roll up a burrito. Otherwise, it's gonna be wrong. This is how they do it at like Chipotle and all that. By the way, at Chipotle, I'm like, I don't even know how they get all those toppings in there. Like I would literally break the burrito if there was that many toppings. But yeah, it might pour out of the sides, which is fine. You could adjust it, or you could just, let it be. And then after you do all the rolling thing for all 4 burritos, if you're meal prepping them, you could even just like put them in the freezer in a bag, or you could put them all in the air fryer or however many you're eating. I like to put it in for like 7 or 8 minutes until it gets crispy like that. You could even put them in for less than that, or you could put them in a panini press, up to you. But I think the air fryer works really well. And then you just cut them in half and maybe put a bit more cheese sauce, and you're good to go. I absolutely love these. They're great for meal prep. They're really filling. And if you want to pair them with like other sauce, you totally can, maybe like sugar-free barbecue sauce. But yeah, they're so, so good. Next up, we've got loaded fries. So this recipe is, again, super easy. You're just kind of blending everything in the blender. I have 2 blenders, and sometimes I have to use my crappier one if the other one's like in the wash, which is annoying. But yeah, basically make sure not to make the sauce too runny. Like honestly, I feel like I could have made it a bit less runny, but you could put both these in the air fryer. You could put the Beyond Meat and then the fries. But honestly, guys, like I think this particular video, the theme was like air fryer recipes, but so that's why I put it in the air fryer. But honestly, the Beyond Meat works better if you put it on the stovetop, but either one works. And then yeah, just kind of like distribute it. This really reminds me of like cafeteria. I don't even know how to describe it, but like sometimes that like quote unquote like gross cafeteria food could actually be like really delicious. I feel like it's messy. You could eat with your fingers, or you can just like eat it with a fork like a normal person. But yeah, I really love loaded fries. Next, we're gonna make adult pizza pockets. So whoever used to eat pizza pops as a kid, raise your hand. I know we all did. My mom would only buy them on like special occasions. And honestly, the macros are not actually that bad on those things, but these are obviously higher in protein. So basically put your fillings and then just sort of like put it together like this. So use like a similar dough to the pizzas, obviously. And then you're just gonna put the cheese, vegan pepperoni, sauce, etc. And then just wrap it up. And then yeah, basically just pinch it and you're kind of good to go. And yeah, this is an easy air fryer recipe. Again, you're gonna put it in the air fryer and make sure to pinch it well. Otherwise the filling is gonna come out and you don't really want that. But these turned out really, really well. I love how browned they are. And then just make sure when you're eating them, they might be kind of hot. So, and also make sure to put them in for the right amount of time. Otherwise they're gonna be doughy and we don't want that. So I would say put them in for like longer than you would think. And they're so good. Nachos are literally my favorite food in the world. Whenever there are nachos on a menu, like I'm gonna eat it. But obviously nachos are really high in calories. Like a serving of nachos from like Boston Pizza or something. I know I keep referencing that restaurant, but that could have like 2,000 calories, just mostly because of the cheese, right? And also like the sheer volume of it, right? So for this recipe, we're doing a cheese sauce. And that is obviously going to be higher in protein, lower in calories. Now, I know it's not necessarily the same thing as stringy cheese, but that's how we're going to keep it lower. And then for the toppings, we're going to use veggies and some like vegan ground meat. Obviously, you could use kind of whatever you want here, but just using macro-friendly toppings, that helps too. I would say most tortilla chips have like relatively the same macros, right? But these ones are thinner, so you feel like you have a higher volume of them. Honestly, for this cheese sauce, I feel like it came out a little bit liquidy, and it depends on what you like. But if I was to remake this, I would make it a little bit thicker, but it did distribute quite well, which is nice. And it looks visually kind of nice too. You could also put some more like cheddar cheese in there to make it more orange if you really want. But yeah, this is really good. I loved it. Oh my God, cheesy garlic bread. So good. Again, this video was kind of like recreating apps that you see in restaurants. So cheesy garlic bread. This is different from the garlic fingers because it's basically like more of a thicker bread style rather than like a pizza. But yeah, you're basically gonna make the dough and then you're gonna put some light margarine on it and make it very garlicky and put some cheese on it. And I first made this recipe a while ago and I absolutely love putting it in a skillet as well. I just feel like everything tastes better in a skillet. But yeah, make sure to not underbake it. You don't want it to be doughy, and you could just kind of pull it apart like that. And it's just like so thick and garlicky and good. And this definitely reminds me of what you get at a restaurant, but you can kind of eat the whole thing to yourself. You could even share it with a friend and then still have calories available for an actual dinner after. Mozzarella sticks. Now, obviously, like a mozzarella stick is a mozzarella stick. Like it's hard to make these like super low in calories, but the way you can do it is obviously using cheese strings. If there's like light cheese strings available as well, you can use that. And then instead of frying it, we're obviously going to air fry it. So I use cornflakes as a batter. You could use panko breadcrumbs. Honestly, the macros aren't that different really, but basically to make them higher in protein, you're using an egg wash. You're doing egg wash, flour, egg wash, and then the cornflakes or breadcrumbs, whatever you choose. Now, your fingers might get a bit dirty. You might need to just kind of wash them in between, and it's going to be a bit annoying, but make sure to not, the key here to make them not as high in calories is make sure to not use too much of the toppings, like be sparing and like use the measurements that I put, because that'll help you make them more macro friendly and not have to add more toppings. But yeah, obviously not deep frying them and not making them like massive blocks of cheese. It really helps. But yeah, you're gonna freeze them, which I know can be annoying, but if you don't freeze them, then they're not gonna keep the structure and they're kind of like gonna ooze out. But I would pair them with marinara sauce. Again, that's like a very low calorie dipping sauce. And then yeah, the entire recipe is under 500 calories. So good. Just look at that cheese pull. Delicious. And lastly, we've got spinach and artichoke dip. Now, this is such a hit, and it's actually pretty easy to make macro friendly. So you're going to use light cream cheese and non-fat Greek yogurt, because obviously this recipe is traditionally made with sour cream, right? So you could blend this all together, or you could just like make sure to chop the spinach and artichoke into really small pieces. Because if they're big pieces, then it's going to taste weird. But yeah, you're basically going to put that all in the cast iron, then sprinkle it with the cheese. And I paired it with like Stacy's pita chips. Just make sure to be mindful of how much you're eating. Or you can pair it with like celery, carrot sticks, that sort of thing if you're more mindful of the portion. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed these recipes, and I'm sure you're looking for more lunch or dinner recipes, so I'll link a video here that you should watch next. And please be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends, as it really helps the channel and I post new ones every week. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Bye.